What is going on, everyone? It is me, Lone Vault Wanderer, back with making gaming news videos. It's been probably about a week since I've done one, and the rest of them has been me bitching about YouTube demonetization. And I do apologize for all the spam about that, but these are real issues that I'm facing at the moment. So if you do want to support me in the midst of all of that, I'll link my Twitch in the description below. Please go support me on there. I'm not asking for donations. I'm not asking for you to sub to me on Twitch. I just want to try and get partnered, and that means I need to increase my concurrent viewership to increase the chances of that happening. So if you want to support me on Twitch, I'll leave the link to my Twitch page in the description below. So let's talk about some Bioshock. And recently, I've been doing some reading, which is something outside of work, obviously, that I never do. I spend so much time at work reading cases and legislation and policy documents that the last thing that I want to do is go home and read some more and read a novel or something. But I've made an exception because recently I picked up the Bioshock novel by John Shirley. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm about a quarter of the way in. And essentially, this book or this novel is a prequel to the entirety of the events in Bioshocks 1 and 2. You pretty much start in the time where Andrew Ryan is in his office in New York and is confronted with the news about all the bombings taking place in Japan, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And he's so disgusted as to what's happening in the world with war and nuclear weapons and the superpowers like the US and Russia, that he really starts to put in place his plans to build a city under the water known as Rapture. And the book details all of the events leading up to the construction of Rapture. It talks about the construction of Rapture itself, and then Rapture is actually built, and then you go into the discovery of Adam and all that kind of stuff. All of the events, again, preceding the first Bioshock game. So it's really interesting stuff, and if you are a Bioshock fan that doesn't mind to read, I would highly recommend this book to you, because there are some insights in there that when you're a fan of the Bioshock games, you just have to smile and think, huh, I didn't know that. That was really cool to know. Like, for instance, this is a very, very, very minor spoiler, okay? It's nothing tangible or substantive to the story of the novel itself. But in the novel, you find out that when Rapture is being constructed, there's a leak in one of the tunnels because the right material wasn't used. And Andrew Ryan almost dies, but doesn't thanks to the work of Bill McDonough. So Bill actually saves Ryan's life, which is just fascinating to me. I love these little tidbits of information. And again, that's why I recommend the book to all of you. But reading the book has got me thinking about where the next Bioshock game could be set. We're going to call it Bioshock 3. I might have another video later as to why I don't call it Bioshock 4. But that's another issue. I want to talk about the potential for the next Bioshock game to be set around the time of the Bioshock novel, because it is fascinating stuff. Now, initially, before delving into the book, I thought, well, the game would be so fascinating, right? Talking about how Rapture was created and the reasons why Andrew Ryan created Rapture and leading into the actual construction of Rapture. I thought, this is actually very interesting. It could make for a very compelling game. But as I started to read the book, I thought, would this translate well into a video game? The whole reason why, in my opinion, at least for myself, Bioshock and Bioshock 2 were so interesting to play was because of Adam and the fact that there were deadly splices everywhere and crazy enemies, and the fact that you had superpowers and you were fighting people with a wrench and guns and electricity from your hand and fire and all of that kind of stuff. While some people might argue that the gameplay of Bioshock is one of its worst factors compared to the narrative and the story especially, and the setting, mind you, the gameplay and the fighting component is still an undeniably important part of the Bioshock games. And if you were to have a game that was set in the events preceding Rapture's existence, in terms of its construction and all the events that happened in New York with Andrew Ryan, etc., it just might not make for a fun game to play. Maybe if it was like a Telltale game where you just followed the events of Rapture being built or something like that. But in terms of playing the game with like shooting, etc., there is nothing of the sort in the Bioshock novel, at least until Rapture is built and at least until Adam is discovered. Again, I haven't gotten too deep into the novel, so I wanted to to say in this video that it might be more interesting to get a game that's like a Telltale game, but maybe not Telltale. I'm torn on that because their recent games haven't been that great. But I'm just saying it might be more interesting in the events leading up to Rapture's construction to have a game like Telltale, and then maybe for the next Bioshock game proper, we have it start from the moment that Rapture is already built and it's already in its heyday, and when they first discover Adam, because I think that, from a gameplay perspective, makes much more sense. Once they discover Adam and the ability for these sea slugs to change the DNA of humans to give us superpowers, which therefore leads to everyone experimenting with them and all that kind of stuff, and that eventually devolves Rapture into a dystopia, I think that, from a gameplay, weapon, fighting perspective, would be much more enjoyable. Otherwise, the game would be much too passive, and I don't see the appeal or the charm to that. Whereas if you start the game at the starting events of Rapture and detail how everything devolved, and it's not just the discovery of Adam, it also is too the conflicts between Ryan and Fontaine, I think it would be absolutely wonderful. And of course, the game can culminate into the civil war between Atlas and Ryan and the 1958 New Year's Eve riots. I think that would be a nice progression of the game, and it would cover events that most Bioshock fans probably don't know about because they haven't really read the book. Like, seriously guys, this book is so fucking interesting. You find out about how Fontaine got his way into Rapture. I'm not going to spoil it because it's fascinating. It's really fascinating stuff, and I think having a game set in the heyday of Rapture and leading to its demise would be incredibly compelling to fans of Bioshock, even though in the past I've said that the new Bioshock should probably be set in a setting completely outside and different to Rapture, just to give the developers the creative freedom and leeway to make a game that isn't compared to Ken Levine's previous work. But regardless, if they wanted to play the safe route and link the new Bioshock to the past games in some sort of story or narrative way, then this is probably the way they should go, because most fans do ask for a Bioshock game that's set before Rapture's demise. And all the stuff in the book I think would provide for incredibly interesting narrative and story. So anyways, Wastelanders, I'd love to get your thoughts on this topic. Please let me know in the comments below what you think, and until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.